Hello, good morning, evening, afternoon, fellow Devsians, wherever you are. Today's video, we're gonna do a quick catch up on the mech fleet. Originally, I want to start doing a playthrough of one of the campaigns or custom campaigns with some of these fleets I've been building. Unfortunately, due to real life reasons, I'm falling behind um, on my progress and just could not move forward until this mech fleet is completed. So we're gonna have a quick look at some of the wonderful designs I came up with, and hopefully soon we'll be able to start a playthrough. So first of all, easy and simple. This is some of the resource units I'll be using for the mech fleet. They all have kind of a similar ridiculous naming scheme, and this is a cargo carrier. It's fairly small, just over 100 meters long, fairly cheap as well. Although we could have saved a lot more material on just structurally, but we ended up having such a beautiful unit here. And looking inside, we got all the usual stuff: the radio dish, cargo containers, over almost 500. Well, actually, exactly half a million resource holding, and we have harvesters and constructors. Yeah, so you can do all your base building needs at a fairly cheap cost in this game. Um, yeah, not much else to say about this one. Next up is this little carrier I've been stressing out about for a very long time uh, to act as a carrier for these fighters. It's such a beautiful little ship, right? And recently I've been watching the space battleship Yamato anime series, and I know doesn't quite fit the style of SBY ships, but I've just been obsessed with the design aesthetics of those Japanese anime ships, including the ships from Gundam and Macross. This is kind of a fusion of the three different styles. And this ship, just looking at the stats, the ship itself is almost 200k and has like almost 100 firepower and 30% armor. So just looking at that, you don't think it's too bad, right? But um, in fact, it's just a glorified hangar. Like most of the ship is empty, and I use a lot of these blocks to get the size I want for the exterior shape at a reasonable cost. And then here we have a all rubber landing strip, so we don't have issues of planes exploding on the runway, front impact damage when they're trying to launch. So that's worked decently well. I never had a launch accident yet. And then here we have a bunch of direct input weapons, which has kind of been my favorite lately for just kind of aesthetic looking weapons without too much cost. But the problem with this ship is that despite 31% armor cost, the armor is paid for itself, so uh, it's kind of very spread out for such a large volume, and that's kind of the opposite of usually high build things. Yeah, so the the combat performance of this is not great. The fighters are decent. I can defeat a lot of things in its cost bracket, but it's not super competitive. Like it doesn't kill its enemies very quickly. Um, Another problem is the game performance when I load this game is really terrible. I don't know, it's just because there's a lot of extra surfaces associated with these blocks for rendering that's kind of like slowing the game down, or it's because there's four of these fighters and there's a lot of breadboard that goes with them that's slowing the game down. If you guys know have any idea about how the game works in that regard, please let me know. We'll do a little bit of combat demo of this ship, and hopefully, I don't know what the performance issues are, will not crash the game. So here we have the Deepwater Barracuda, very similar cost bracket for the whole fleet. We can easily beat them. Here is a deep water guard albacore, which is frontside airship. I have no idea if we're able to beat that. That's a fairly meta design, so I have not tried yet. We'll spawn in that deep water guard craft. It is a it's a carrier type vessel. So you can see the fairly smooth animation of these fighters launching. Pretty good. The runway is just over 100 meters long, so it barely works for getting all that done without too many pistons or stun blocks to make it work. Here we have a lot of direct input feed cannons doing their best. Let's see, hopefully we don't have a crash of any of our aircraft. I feel like we enter into degraded mode for the game, which is not very great for this showcase demo. I feel like we did some kind of critical damage to this Barracuda. Probably our direct input feed guns had a very lucky hit and disabled their engine. I have never seen this before, but yeah, looks like these guys are fairly screwed. Well, not very cinematic for a first demo, I think. Maybe we'll try something different. Well, actually, just following up a second later, the Barracuda has despawned. They probably had it over AI dead. That's why they recall the fighters, but the fighters were able to launch again. We still have... Oh, looks like we had a collision or a lucky hit or something on one of our fighters, but slowly we're picking off the enemy fighters. The reason this ship is so expensive and combat not super effective, despite what you just saw, is most of the ship is made of active defenses, because it's very hard to armor up something this large. You can see this all missile defense, outside missile defense, and land for something of this cost bracket. The direct... Ooh. These top direct input feed guns are loaded with frag, so they have some chance of picking off these little planes that get too close. You can see the guns, they have a long reload time, but they're slowly working on the problem. Oh yeah, that was a good hit. They got fairly close. I think we were able to do appreciable damage to that fighter. It's a state of our own fighters. Doing pretty good. These are the bomber type modules. Bomber loadout mech fighters. So they're a bit less agile than the defense type, but I feel like for having to put in the whole effort of building a carrier, it makes sense to have bombers. The fighters should be more agile and should just be able to function on their own. The retrieval process of the aircraft here is programmed with a lot of fail-safes. The engines on this craft are fully disabled. This is the engine flare of the ship, by the way. It's very nice looking, and recently I've been kind of in love with these small thrusters, just for the number of patterns you can do with them. Great for game performance, yes, no, hard to say, but yeah, there's some tricks you can do with them. So the thrusters on this craft is disabled up until 4 seconds after all the aircraft have been retrieved and detected using ACB. So then it just guarantees a nice return animation, and you don't have crafts hanging outside the hangar while the ship is trying to move. Finally here, this is a Authority class space mech ship. Hard to say what this is. Okay, so the story here is I wanted to use pot thrusters to create a space vessel so that the thrust mechanism and everything will be like super efficient, right? Just look at the stats on this thing. 400,000 was over 200 firepower and almost 30%, well, 27% in armor, which is not bad. It has great speed, and once you see it in motion, it has great maneuverability. The only thing is a little bit cheesy. It's a little bit cheesy with thrusters mounted in pods. So sometimes the pods are pointing at the wall, but it can still function. But I try to make it just a little bit less cheesy by always having the pods exposed on the outside of the ship rather than, embedded in the center of the ship. So how the pods are work is the thrust vectoring. So there's 20 of these up forward pods. So there's enough thrust power here with the ion thrusters to get the ship out of atmo by itself. Or as you say, escape the gravity well. But in Fromthedepths, it's more like a gravity gradient. Here there's 2 tiny pods just for strafe and row, which it's not really needed for this ship. And then there's 4 giant pods here for attitude control, pitch and yaw, and that's the only thing they're responsible for. So we have very good orientation and translational control on this ship. Well, with exception of row and strafe, but there's a clever workaround on that, which you'll see later as the ships start to operate. So why does it look like this? Well, I tried very hard to, first, I want the thing to be functional and competitive. So I have this hull with weapons and pods, right? And everything makes sense. And then after that, I'm like, this is for the mech fleet, and I want it to look like a mech. And mechs have lots of weapons sticking out of the side, so I did that. And it still doesn't look enough like a mech, so I added a head. I'm like, oh, am I still cheating? There's not a lot of legs or arms. So just to be able to include it in the mech fleet, I actually added actual mech escorts to the craft. So now it comes with 2 low escorts, which are, fairly weak, but they are actual space mechs with the same pod setup as the main craft. And they're not super expensive, so they can be fairly good, just sort weight units. And the problem with a lot of spacecraft or enemy spacecraft in Fromthedepths is that they do not have very good point defense or anti-aircraft defense. They do not expect these things to come up to them. So they do actually quite well, despite how poorly designed they are compared to in-atmo units, I guess. Well, enough talking, let's see a bit of a demo. Okay, here we're going to do a quick demo against the Scarlet on DOMINUS spacecraft. We're quite a bit more expensive. So it will be a good showcase of our ship's capabilities. So one thing we're doing is we don't have very strong row thrusters, but or strafe thrusters, but we want a good strafing speed against the target. So we're rolling the whole ship to the side, and then we're using our very powerful up thrusters to achieve an orbital motion against the target. You can see we're very well rolling onto the side. And the small mechs, they're just getting to a close-in combat distance against the target, and then they're pummeling away with different types of weapons. They have 2 diff cannons and then the Sable sandblasters. Oh, that was a lucky hit on the wrecking puffy gun. I believe that's an APHE shell. Wow, okay. So we had a lucky AI hit. Ooh. Yeah, the collision avoidance in Fromthedepths is not great. Sometimes the collision avoidance will set a waypoint that erroneously takes the craft closer to the collision point rather than further away. It would be nice to be able to tweak that using settings panel. You can see this ship, despite how much armor it has, is very maneuverable even in space. So yeah, there you go. Thanks everyone for watching. This is a update on the mech fleet, and now with all these additional new craft, I think the mech fleet is ready for use in a campaign playthrough. So see you guys next time. Bye.